Christianity, in its teaching about who we are, is an incarnational teaching. We can't take the body lightly. And we're very different in that regard from other teachings such as, Platonism, for example, or Buddhism. We say the body is a part of the person. And that's right. We live from our bodies. Our bodies, when we come into this world, that's the first thing we have to get dominion over, is our body. And that's a slow process. And of course, when we come in as little babies, we have to have a lot of help. And that's another respect in which the human being is very different from any other living thing, is the degree to which it has to receive from others. You see a mother looking into the face of a little child. It's very interesting to watch it because it's totally natural for this to happen. A mother just pouring her soul into that little child, into its eyes, and how they lock eyes and look at one another. That's bodily behavior, you see. And the little child grows, and increasingly more and more their body becomes under their dominion, and then they begin to get other bodies under their dominion. Mama and Papa experience this strongly. And then out from that, the extension of the individual's kingdom is always a bodily thing. I mean, you can't even write a check without your body. And so the idea of a signature, for example, is a bodily thing. And that's going to be a part of us for eternity. And that's why we have a resurrection and not just immortality, is because the connection with that body is still very much involved in who we are. So just to summarize, the body is the primary place of power and dominion. It's our first kingdom, as it were. And now, as we grow, then more and more of what we thought and what we feel is farmed out to our bodies. And that's a good thing. So you want to, in a certain sense, you want to be riding in a car with a driver who doesn't have to think about it, right? Because it's in their body. Their legs know what to do, their eyes, their hands, they don't have to think about it. And that's a good thing. Speaking a language, writing a language, almost all of the things we do as human beings are farmed out to our bodies, and that's good. Now, the problem is that our body has been inhabited by evil as well. So our body knows to do wrong. And the feelings that we have, for example, anger, become a part of our body. Fear, pride, those are feelings that become part of the body. You watch this in a young person. If you're around adolescence, for example, you watch how pride and fear, sexuality, status, all of these are bodily phenomena. And we are ready to do what is wrong. We don't have to think about it. We're ready to do what is wrong. See, that's the hill that you have to climb when you begin to transform the body. And for men especially, all of the problems of sexuality have to do with what is already in their body. It isn't in their mind alone. It's primarily in their body. Women too. Anger. The saying about Jesus that when he was reviled, he reviled not again, indicated a huge difference in his body, not just in his mind. Because you see, cursing back is a bodily response. And when people are trying to learn to control anger and desire, usually their body is a way out ahead of them. See, that's what Jesus knew about Peter. When Peter said, I will not deny you, I will stand, Jesus said, no, you'll deny me. Jesus knew how this works, and he knew it was in Peter's body. And when Peter, and this story is so beautiful, you need to go over it in detail and just watch how it happened, because how does it happen? Does some big gruff man come up and say to Peter, you're one of them, you're a Galilean? No, a little girl. But you see, the trigger was on the inside. He was ready to deny. Fear, pride. All of those things were right there in his jaws. He didn't have to think to deny. And his thinking to not deny was not powerful enough to overcome what was in his body. So now then we have thought, feeling, will, but we have to recognize that character is primarily located in our bodies. And so if we're going to start with Jesus in his teaching, his wonderful teachings in Matthew 5, where he begins to lay out how to change and become the kind of kingdom person, he starts with anger and contempt. Well, we have to start there too. 2,500, 3,000 murders a year, I guess, in many of our parts of our country. How many of those would happen if there was no anger? Almost none of them. See, the instrumentalities of evil come through the body. And we have to learn how to train the body in ways that drop off this load of readiness to do what is wrong and replace them with readiness to do what is right. If the cursing is in our tongue and jaws, it will come out. If blessing is there, that's what will come out. See, when Jesus on the cross was saying, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing," that was not hard for him. See? And you could easily imagine someone saying, just wait till my Father gets his hands on you, you're going to burn in hell. Right? That wasn't in him. It was what was in his body that came out. And we can really move things along here by learning simple things like releasing my body to God, actually giving it to him. When Paul says, present your body as a living sacrifice to God, he really means that. And we can do that. And I would challenge anyone to experience that. Lie down on the floor and give your body to God. And that'll help you stop idolizing the body, which we see so much of in our culture. The body is taken as sort of the ultimate point of reference in our culture. And amazing things. You see these commercials now about these electronic things that will give you washboard abs. And you don't have to do anything, it just does the jerking for you. Right? Well, I mean, who needs the abs, really? So we can stop idolizing the body. We can stop misusing it to overwhelm other people. Like I face this as a teacher and as a minister, how I dress. There's such a thing as power dressing. Right? Or physical appearance to manipulate others. We can lay all that down. And we need to learn to honor and care for our body as the servant of the spiritual life. To recognize, to keep it well in health and exercise, but above all in holiness. Not to submit our members as instruments of unrighteousness, but to submit them unto God. See? To develop that as a habit. You know, what happens here is we find that just as evil ran from our body without our thinking, so holiness and goodness and rightness comes from our body without our thinking. And that's important because in the ordinary human circumstance, if we have to think, it's ordinarily too late already. And that's why it must reach all the way into our body. And then we know the kingdom of God in a way that we can't know it otherwise. We know peace and joy. See, all of this comes together now. We're not done with it yet. We have a little more to go. But the body is absolutely central to spiritual transformation.
Okay, this has got to work. See, it all started, I guess, with that magazine in the mail, out of the blue, with a brown paper wrapper on it. I was 11, fairly impressionable 11, and my dad had gotten a subscription to National Geographic. He and my mom thought it would be educational for us kids. Boy, were they ever right. I came home from school, and there on the breakfast table was a stack of mail with this magazine with a brown paper wrapper on it. I never got any mail. 11-year-olds don't get mail. But something about that brown paper wrapper sort of caught my attention. I slipped it off and started flipping through that magazine. There were some pictures of some lions and some gazelles. And then, right there, next to the gazelles, was this picture of this native village. Little kids running around and these native women with absolutely no shirts on. I was stunned. I couldn't believe my parents let that magazine into our house. They were Republicans, for Pete's sake. My parents, not the natives. Well, the next month when I came home and that brown paper wrapper was on the breakfast table, it's kind of like a fuse got lit. I grabbed that magazine, ran out to my tree house and pulled up the rope ladder and pulled off that brown wrapper and started flipping through the pages, hoping to accidentally stumble onto some more natives. Well, there weren't any that month or for the next year or so, but the fuse had been lit. Brown paper means trouble. When I was about 14, brown paper wrappers took on a whole different dimension. Magazine rack, 7-Eleven. Well, my buddies put me up to it, and so I sort of worked my way past the road and track and popular mechanics so I could, accidentally stumble into the brown paper wrapper section. And by golly, the women behind those brown paper wrappers were a whole lot different than the ones in National Geographic. I mean, if the National Geographic women were real, these women were absolutely unreal. If the National Geographic women lit the fuse, well, these women were the explosion. And I figured that brown wrapper was some sort of protection to keep the shrapnel from blowing a hole in me and everybody else in that 7-Eleven. That was also kind of a gauntlet, though. Can I work my way past the brown paper wrapper before the guilt sets in? Like most 14-year-olds, I was a pretty artful dodger. Yeah, well, a guy gets older, and eventually he gets too slow to successfully dodge the guilt anymore, and at some point it kind of flashes through your mind, I guess it's time to grow up. I'd like to say I did that I grew up completely, but we all know better. I mean, I'm not sneaking a peek in the 7-Eleven anymore, but, well, there is the internet and cable and secretaries and waitresses and all the sales gals at the Walmart, and, well, you get the picture. Fella just gets bombarded, doesn't he? Yeah, it's funny how a guy can be flipping channels and sort of accidentally stumble past ESPN and fumble right into, well, a fella just gets bombarded. So anyway, about a week ago, I'd had a particularly bombarded day. Seems like every place I looked that day, I was getting nailed. I was driving into every ditch I passed. And I was at the 7-Eleven, pumping some gas into my wife's car. And right there, on the gas tank, was an advertisement. This woman selling Cheez-Its. Now, this woman looked like she just stepped out of one of those Victoria's Secrets catalogs. Let's just say I was not looking at the Cheez-Its. And it really ticked me off. I mean, I thought, you can't even pump gas or look at an advertisement on a gas pump without your mind heading south. I made myself look away. I looked into the back seat of my wife's car, and there was some tape and a roll of brown paper. I guess my wife was going to wrap up the kids' school books or something. And it just sort of flashed through my head, shrapnel protection. I wasn't even thinking. I just grabbed that brown paper. Before I knew what I had done, I had completely wrapped up that gas pump in brown paper, paid for my gas, and drove off. Well, over the last few days, I've been wrapping lots of things in brown paper. My television, my laptop, computer, my secretary's desk. I must have used about 20 or 30 rolls this last week. My wife thought it was pretty funny until she had to come bail me out for wrapping up a motor oil display in an auto parts store. That's when she told me, my wife did, "I don't think this is working." I guess she's right. I guess there's not enough brown paper around to actually do what needs to be done. So, I thought I'd just try this for a while. Wrap myself up every day. Just completely wrap myself up. Look, I know what some of you are thinking. The guy's lost it. Yeah, well, if you've got any better ideas, you just let me know. You know, I wrote that piece several years ago for a men's retreat. It was all tongue-in-cheek, of course, because when it comes to our bodies, even a world of brown paper is not going to do the trick. No, we'd all do better, I think, just wrapping our hearts up in the flag of surrender and let God do the hard work of transforming us from the inside out.
Well, our body, you know, takes over too, because I know I've watched many.
Say more about what does that mean?
Well,
the body takes over.
Yeah, you know, in many situations like this, there is a bodily revulsion towards loving, being present, and helping, and all of that. We have. I know, for example, physically, many people their body is revolted by a dependent person, for example. Mm-hmm. And so this love has to seep all the way down, mm-hmm. and that's a large assignment because it's, if you watch the expressions of disgust and revolt in people toward various things, including just contempt towards people, who maybe are different, well, I see it in Christians, to people who are of different doctrine, as you see people actually
I was having a discussion
contempt.
with my wife 2 weeks ago, and she said, "I wish you could see the look on your face right now."
Well,
and my immediate response was, "I wish that I could manage my face better."
Yes.
So that
that's right.
So that it didn't.
Yeah, you know,
so
but it goes deeper than that. doesn't it?
Techniques of face management.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds like something who runs seminars on is how to manage your face.
Yeah.
But
there would be business courses with it because,
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a world, most of the folks that I am at church with, they live in a world where they have to manage their face. That's you can't let people know if you're scared, if you don't like them. You're constantly managing your face to convey, to get them to think about you what you want them to think about you, and your whole world is built on that.
Which makes us a bunch of phonies.
Yeah.
So then how do we let the truth seep into our thoughts, through our emotions, and touch the will that God has given us for Him, to discipline that, and then what does it mean to have that seep into our body? So it's not face management, but it's face expression.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that's where these disciplines come in.
Okay.
And things like solitude and silence and Another great discipline is service. Honest, just service, just doing something for a person with nothing coming back. And that makes your body behave differently.
One of the best moments I had, I was about to meet with a little class of 10 people to close up a whole semester. And I was to lead this little group. And I didn't want to go. I was annoyed. I was dry. And what I sat down and did was I got out 10 pieces of paper and wrote each of them a note of what I appreciated about them, my vision for them. And it took me about 3 hours to write those 10 significant notes.
Sure.
And by the time I was done, I couldn't wait to get there.
Wow.
And my body was full of it.
Yes.
I mean, it was like, hey, as opposed to, hey, you know.
But you put your body into it.
I put my body into it.
Writing
I wrote.
Absolutely.
I sat at a desk.
Yeah, it's very important.
There were a lot of bodily things through which my mindset was expressed that changed a lot of things. It was a wonderful experience, actually.
One of the things that I'm most troubled about in the academic setting is race relations and the body language that goes into
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It's just so depressing and so sad to see all of the exaggerated behavior that you know. Now, you see, if we spend enough time with one another, that would at least lessen. But it's such a complicated message that comes over. And the interesting thing is everyone around picks up on every nuance of it because it's so painful.
Yeah.
But of course they have to go through it. And one of the wonderful things about a child is a baby is that they cannot manage their face. And I think that is one of the things surely Jesus had in mind, is they can't manage
The
their
guilelessness.
face. Yes, and if they're dismayed, they're dismayed.
Yeah.
Whatever's there is there. Now, surely we could come back to that.